Welcome to the Creator Spotlight, the interview portion of the Spotlight here at Fightful. I am Steven Jensen, as always, with Jeremy Lambert, and today our guest is a world chess boxing champion. He was a part of the Ludwig Chess Boxing event that recently happened, massive success on YouTube, part of Love is Blind on Netflix, founder of Brawl For The Cause, a man of many trades and many accolades, and a guy we're very happy to have on the show, Matt Thomas. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
What's up, guys? Yeah, I'm doing okay. How are you guys?
Good. I'm excited that you're joining us for a different reason than Jensen is. Jensen's going to talk about chess boxing and everything, which I'm excited to learn more about. I'm going to talk about Love is Blind because that is one of my favorite reality shows. But Jensen, I'll let you lead off.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know where to start exactly because you know what? The first question I had for you, I'm just going to knock it out right off the bat because I don't want to forget to, and it's like running the kind of the top of my mind. You were a part of one of my favorite influencer boxing events, like traditional boxing events. I was a big fan of the Aaron Carter Lamar Odom card. I don't think that got enough credit for like what that was. I think Aaron Carter deserved a lot more credit for taking that fight against the guy who was so much larger than he was, former NBA player and all that stuff. Aaron Carter recently passed away. We talked about it a little bit on our show here. What was it like kind of just like being a part of that event? Because that was such a freak show type of event, but like you went out there and killed it. I think you were the best boxer on the whole card for what it's worth.
Oh, that means a lot. Yeah, that whole celebrity boxing circuit is a little bit of a circus in a good way. It's entertaining. It's supposed to be, and yeah, the way I got on the card was kind of by happenstance. I trained out of Atlanta, Georgia, in a gym called Decatur Boxing Gym, headed up by Xavier Biggs. And Xavier was slotted to coach Lamar Odom for this fight. So he was looking for sparring partners, and I'm a little bigger than Aaron, but I have more experience, and I started sparring with Lamar to start getting him ready, and then they found out I was on Love is Blind and found out about Brawl For A Cause and said, do I want a spot on the undercard? I said, absolutely. So, it was not something I sought out. It's something that kind of just happened because I was at the gym one day, and it was a really fun show to be a part of. It's the only time I've ever fought in Atlantic City. It was a sold out crowd. And like you said, I don't think that main event got as much credit as it should have, especially that first round. Aaron looked great. He kind of stunned Lamar. And I was like, no way. Is this going to be like a David and Goliath kind of thing where Aaron's actually going to pull this off? But of course, Lamar is a freak athlete and was almost like twice the size of Aaron. So it ended how everyone thought it would.
Well, so I'm really glad you brought that up. I didn't want to so I think you're being very honest about all of that also, because I know you were in Lamar Odom's corner during that fight as well. And Aaron Carter, I've said it before and I'll say it again, no headgear and or smaller gloves. That's a different looking fight. Like he didn't answer like the first probably 10 shots that Aaron threw at him. And I was like, wow, this is actually, I can't believe this is happening right now. And then, not too much longer, he's doing like the airplane spins and just kind of like, the size, it was just too much. But I thought it was just really cool you're a part of that event, because that was just a whole kind of, I've heard on like the back end, and you don't need to get into it, but I heard Aaron Carter talking about the experience with Triller and stuff like that. And I don't know how, like you said, a lot of it's a circus, but like I did enjoy it as a spectator just for what it's worth. So
yeah, but no, it's fun. They put on entertaining shows, and yeah, I mean, I think because the gloves were 23 ounce and the headgear is just about as much coverage as you could get, it's very difficult to get injured in that kind of fight, which is why I went to the body. My fight in that I got a liver shot. It was probably, I think it's the fastest TKO I've gotten. So I think if you don't go to the body, you're kind of just playing sock and boppers with each other. Like you aren't doing that much damage.
If I remember correctly, you landed like a few solid combos and then the body shot, and then like a really nice, it was either like an overhand right or a right hook, I remember, and just clean that dude's clock.
Yeah, I slipped one of his overhand rights and took I landed a left hook to the body, and it caught him I think on the liver. And you know, there's that delayed reaction when you get hit in the liver. It doesn't hurt immediately, but then like your body's like, uh-oh. And the second shot was just a straight cross, and I didn't turn my hip all the way. I didn't put my full force into it, but it was wide open. So I caught him on the chin, and I think that was just like the timber kind of moment. Like he was already hurting from the liver, and then that just kind of like pushed him over. And he had kind of a dramatic little like thing on the ground, and the ref called it there. So
yes.
All right, talk to me about chess boxing, because you are a chess boxing world champion. And for those who don't know what chess boxing is, it is, I guess, exactly what it sounds like. You do a round of chess and then a round of boxing. And you have to be good at both of this, because you could obviously lose the chess game before you even get to the boxing. I've watched some of the highlights, and you're beating people at chess and you're beating people at boxing. Like, how does this come about? Like, who even thinks of chess boxing? And then how do you get into something like this?
Yeah, so I guess a couple things to unpack. So first, the rules. It's the board game chess, the combat sport boxing, and you're alternating rounds between the two until there's checkmate or knockout, whichever comes first. So you're never doing both at the same time. So a lot of people kind of joke like, oh, you take a piece, then you get a cold cock them in the chin or something. It's like, no, it's the first round is on the chessboard.
Right.
You play our format 2 Sundays ago was 2 minutes of speed chess. So we're making moves, we're hitting our timers. There's an aggregate of 2 minutes between us. When that hits 0 for those 2 minutes, they pause the game timer. They pause the game. They take the board out of the ring, and then you have 1 minute to put on your gloves, psych yourself up, get ready to box. And as soon as the bell rings, we're boxing for 2 minutes. So we're going back and forth. Our heart rate's getting up. Our adrenaline's getting up. Let's say no one knocks each other out. When that bell rings, you go back to your corner, take off your gloves, come back to the board, pick up the game where you left off. And like that until time runs out, until checkmate, or until knockout or technical knockout. And the TKOs work kind of the same way as amateur boxing. And I usually don't go into this when I'm talking to most people or interviewers or whatever, but because this is like a fight audience, then we can talk about the stoppages. So
yeah.
The TKOs work the same as amateur boxing, where there's 3 stoppages in a round counts as TKO, or 4 stoppages in a whole match. So it typically ends like that more than like an actual knockout. As you know, pretty hard to knock someone out, but you can overwhelm someone enough times or get enough momentum going in your direction to earn those stoppages.
How much does I'm trying to think of the best way to ask this question. How much does one affect the other? Like, once you get a few rounds in, like, is your chess like significantly more difficult, like mentally, because like physically you're like recovering from the boxing? Like, does it make both, like, you know what I mean? Is like mentally and physically exhausting both ways, or really one affects the other throughout the whole process?
Yeah. It's you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of what the actual battle is. So a lot of people, when they hear chess boxing, it's like, oh, get as good as you can at chess, as good as you can at boxing. But really what you want to optimize for is state change management. Because the parts of your brain that you use for chess and the parts of your brain that you use for boxing work against each other. So what I mean by that is when you're boxing and you have a high adrenal state, your heart rate's really high, you're using the primal part of your brain, the part that evolved first, which is a very present part of your brain. It's like, right now, I need to figure out what I need to do to fight, flee, or if you can't figure that out, then you freeze. And that's how people get knocked out. So you got to be using that like in the moment, fight or flight kind of part of your brain. And when you play chess, you don't want to use that part of your brain at all. You want to use your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, which focuses on pattern recognition, strategic thinking, and visualization. So that's the part of your brain that like makes plans 5 years in the future, like makes a business plan or whatever. Like it's the part of your brain that has gotten us to evolve to this point. So the minute in between rounds turns into another battlefield. How well can you wrangle your heart rate and bring it down to signal to your central nervous system it's okay to exit fight or flight, and dump adrenaline so that you can start to focus on the next round, which is chess. So you can start to assess your position on the board. You can start to think about candidate moves, and you can make the best decision to start out. And the reason that's so important is the beginning of each round is when the match altering mistakes happen in both chess and boxing. So if you come out too cold in boxing, you get called up early, then momentum just is like against you for the rest of the round. And that's usually when people get knocked out or get stoppages. And then the inverse is true for chess. If you're still like huffing and puffing and think about getting hit last round and not, focus on the board, you make one wrong move. It's easy to capitalize on that and get momentum going your way on the chessboard too. So that state change management is super, super important.
So how do you train for something like that? Because obviously you train boxing, you train chess, you play a lot of chess games, do boxing stuff. But when you're talking about like the state change management, like that is the interesting part to me, because you're right in that, and I've never done chess boxing, but you're right in that, like, that would seem to be the most difficult part is like, all right, I'm amped up, I'm ready to fight. Oh, wait, I got to come down. And now I got to like make moves on a chessboard. Like, how do you train your brain to do that aside from, I guess, doing chess boxing like rounds and stuff? Are there other ways to sort of train your brain for that? I guess what I'm asking.
Absolutely. Yeah. We call it priming. And it really wasn't popularized in the sport until 2018, which was the first year I competed in the World Championship. And what I focused on was using breath work from yoga in order to optimize for the next round in between rounds. So for like, let's say before a boxing round, I would use a breath from yoga called Kapalabhati, or what's known in English as fire breath. And have you ever seen that like Wim Hof guy who like survives like super cold temperatures, can hold his breath a long time? He does a certain breath before he does all that. It's the same. It's derived from the same breath from yoga. So what it does is it over oxygenates your bloodstream in your brain. So you're getting way more air intake, and it compresses your abdomen so that it massages your organs, moves them around, and that helps you release adrenaline. Because usually when you do that in nature, when you're like your organs are getting rearranged, usually you're in some sort of activity or in danger. So when you do that kind of breath, you're both helping yourself and triggering yourself to get into that fight or flight state. And then I have an opposite kind of breath called samavriti, or box breathing is what it's called in like the special forces. It's what Navy SEALs use to calm themselves down when they're in the heat of battle so that they can make strategic decisions. Wow. And box breathing, the simplest form of it is just 4 count breaths. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds with empty. And what you can what I usually train people in is, because it's really hard to hold your breath at empty, especially when you're not used to it. What you want to do as a first step is just try to exhale longer than you inhale. So if I take a sharp inhale for 4 seconds, then I want to try to exhale for longer than those 4 seconds. Try to get to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds by the end of the transition round. And what that does is it's kind of like a biohack that signals to your central nervous system it's okay to exit fight or flight, dump the adrenaline, and calm the body down, which will help calm the brain down.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fascinating. The science that goes into that.
And boxing coaches have been doing that a long time. Like in between rounds, they'll cue, okay, slow, deep breaths. Make sure you're breathing in through your nose. Try to breathe out through your mouth. Like that slower, more controlled breath has been used in a variation for boxing. But because chess boxing is such a different animal, the same techniques can't be used. You have anywhere between 4 and 5 minutes of downtime in between boxing rounds. Like that's enough time for your body to kind of get cold. So you need to be doing different things than when you usually only have a minute in between rounds in regular combat sports.
Yeah. Do you think the strategy changes or at all for like the beginning of the show was Smash and boxing, which was very interesting. I didn't know that was going to be happening until I was watching the event. And I know there's been like controversy recently in the Smash community and Nintendo with the tournaments and stuff. So, and I know Ludwig is very big in that community. I'm sure he's trying to help out and get people talking about it. And, the perfect example, getting that on the show. what was it like seeing something like that? Because I've never seen anything like that before. It was like a video game for a round and then boxing for a round. I know it's the same like general concept, but was that something new to you as well, or is that something that's like a little more out there that we just don't know about?
It was brand new. Yeah. And it was actually his first idea prior to hosting a chess boxing event. Like 4 years ago, he wanted to host a smash boxing event, and pursuing the smash boxing event is what led him to chess boxing. So, long story there, but that's the road that led to me getting involved with the event. Is they ended up having a really tough time sanctioning the combat sports, and when I got involved, I initially just got involved to help coach the participants on how to do the state change management, how to do chess boxing specific exercises and drills, and how to build training programs. Because that's when I competed in the world championships, that's what I got reps in, and I could like pass off a lot of those training documents. But when I got more involved with the event, I kind of realized like, oh, they're in danger of like not being able to host it. When I talked to the head event planner, he had never done a combat sport event. He had done huge events, like really talented event planner, but just hadn't had to like ensure an event like this before, hadn't had to go through athletic commissions or through USA Boxing to get it sanctioned. And that's where the 11 years of planning and promoting the Brawl For A Cause events really came in handy, because the head of the California State Athletic Commission is the former head of the Georgia State Athletic Commission. So I already knew the guy. And so they ended up engaging me, not just as a coach, but as a consultant to help plan the event. And then as the last thing to come around was the commentary, which was the part that I was most excited about.
Well, that was my next question, actually. Like, what was that whole experience like? I mean, being on commentary, being a part of the event, being so involved backstage and behind the scenes. And also, I mean, for people who are watching this show that might not know, Ludwig is a massively famous and popular streamer that, like, I mean, y'all had a concurrent viewership of like over 500,000 at points during this thing. I want to say, like, it was unreal the amount of people that watched this live. And I followed his journey from like Twitch to YouTube, his never ending stream and stuff like that. And like, so it's been really cool seeing him and seeing it, because people knock the influencer boxing and stuff, and I get it, the circus aspects that we've kind of touched on, but at the same time, like, they're also just bringing eyes to stuff. Like, people are watching, people are interested, and I feel like, hey, what's to say that a YouTuber can't just throw events like this if people are going to watch it? I mean, if professional boxers, some of these events, hardly anyone shows up, but these YouTubers can put butts in seats and they can get people to watch online. I mean, I think it's super impressive. So what was it like being a part of the event, just in general, for you on commentary and behind the scenes?
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about the event, but I think it's important to reiterate what you said about influencer boxing. So this is something I've been passionate about since starting Brawl For A Cause in 2012. Which is, I get the purist argument of it. It dilutes the quality of the sport, but in reality, it doesn't affect the quality of the sport. There's still the top 1% that are going to fight in other events, that are going to fight for pure fans that know what they're watching. But in order for the sport to be healthy and to thrive, you need hobbyists. You need casual viewers that are willing to buy a ticket or turn on a stream and watch and get involved as a hobby themselves. So kind of like first level viewer, just watch it and be entertained and watch a few ads. We need you. Next level, buy some wraps and gloves and get into a gym. Support boxing coaches, support USA Boxing if you want to try amateur boxing. So support that beginner level. And then inevitably there's going to be the filters and the working your way up the ladder to get to the top tier of the sport that are I think where the heart of the argument against influencer boxing is coming from. And we have the same thing in chess boxing. In fact, the founder, Jeremy asked earlier, who would have started something like this. The founder was an artist and a purist. His mission was to find the smartest, toughest man on the planet. And it was a noble quest and an interesting, like tagline for articles, but it is not what would grow the sport efficiently or effectively. What we saw 2 Sundays ago is, and so to segue back to what it was like being involved with this event, I caught some flack from our community for being involved, but what ended up kind of like bringing it full circle for them was they needed someone to write the rule set and get it approved. So I was able to write that rule set and then fly over 4 international officials from the World Chess Boxing Organization in order to officiate the event. So building that bridge between this influencer, bunch of eyeballs, bunch of butts and seats, to like some sort of source of the seed that started the sport. It fit the right balance, the right yin and yang of like what could be considered the actual sport and what would be entertaining for people to watch, because these people none of them had chess boxed before, and it's supposed to be like this big coming out party for the world, or for our world. And I think 2 things happen. 2 main things happen. First, we saw the very upper level of chess competition and chess boxing on 2 Sundays ago. We had the highest ever chess player that had chess box compete as Grandmaster Amon Hamilton from Chess Brawl competed, and so that like set a new record for us, where a Grandmaster took on an international master, and the Grandmaster knocked out in the first boxing round the international master. Awesome. That's like one side of the spectrum. To see chess boxing expressed in that way was so cool. And then you see the other side of the spectrum, where 2 of the biggest YouTubers in the gaming sphere, Myth and Churdley's,
right,
had a combined rating that was lower than anyone else on the card.
Right. So people who don't know, like, they essentially didn't play chess. They were just letting it go through to get to the boxing rounds, is essentially what that.
And they made it entertaining. They would put their finger over a piece. They would be like cheering to like move that piece. They'd move it. They'd spend an extra like 2 minutes just like hyping up the crowd or like making faces at their opponent. And it was absurd. But that's part of the entertainment. That's part of like why they were on the card, why they have millions of followers, and why they brought a percentage of those followers to that event. Like that's you need that just as much as you need the smaller streamer that has the highest chess rating that has ever been in our sport.
So, I mean, you mentioned the entertainment aspect of it and the boxing influences and stuff. So we are a wrestling podcast, and I'm going to bring in some wrestling here. Logan Paul, Jake Paul, big time influencers who are now in professional. Logan Paul certainly into professional wrestling, main eventing major shows against Roman Reigns. Is there any wrestling influence from you doing all these boxing events, these chess boxing events? Like, have you any interest in the pro wrestling world? I guess what I'm asking.
So the first conversation that we had about celebrity boxing, where Aaron Carter fought Lamar Odom and I was on the undercard, they are positioning themselves as the WWE for boxing. So
they say themselves. Yeah.
They say themselves.
Yeah.
And if you take a look under the hood or peek behind the curtain, their sanction is the same kind of sanction that the WWE gets. So they don't play by the same rules that pro boxing or even amateur boxing play by. They play by an entertainment set of rules, not a competitive combat sport set of rules. So I won't go too much into detail with that, but I think that at the end of the day, everyone's doing the same thing, which is entertainment. Any sport is really entertainment for everyone but the people on the field or in the ring or whatever. It's entertainment. And for most of the people that engage in it, it's a livelihood. It's a job. And that job is to entertain, to sell tickets, to sell sponsorships, to sell ads. And sometimes the most elite version of competition is what sells those tickets or sponsorships or ads. And sometimes it's not the most elite kind of competition, not the most exciting thing in the ring. Sometimes it's the most exciting thing out of the ring. Look at Floyd Mayweather, boring fighter, defensive grandmaster. But look what he did outside the ring to compensate for that. He had a big mouth. He made people hate him. And I think that the Paul brothers do a brilliant job of the same thing, which is why Logan can skip a bunch of steps and go straight to Roman Reigns, and why Jake Paul is taking over the pro boxing world. It's not even influencer boxing anymore. It's just boxing. He's in the same conversations getting as the GOATs, in our generation, and he's getting honorary belts from the WBA, and he's selling out like sections of seats for Madison Square Garden. It's real. It's real because it's entertainment, not because of they're the best to ever do it.
Well, I think I agree with all of that, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier too, with like kind of the hate that like just celebrity boxing gets and stuff like that, and YouTuber boxing, influencer boxing, and like I think that's Jake Paul is the most polarizing by far, because I feel like everyone just doesn't know how to process it. The purists are like, no, there's just no way he can be this good. There's just no way. This is fake until he fights a real boxer. It doesn't matter. But then like people like me that are more on the fringe of boxing, but really into mixed martial arts, we're like, well, no, like beating Anderson Silva is legitimate. Beating Tyron Woodley is legitimate. Beating beating these guys in boxing, if you're Jake Paul with the little experience he has, these are legitimate victories. And so it's like it's this weird thing where I feel like a lot of people want to see him fight a real boxer, but at the same time, doing what he's doing is drawing so well that like, why would he stop doing what he's doing?
I'm gonna give a controversial opinion that your audience might hate, but Jake Paul is the best to ever do it, and here's how I'm gonna support.
I love that.
Here's how I'm gonna support that. The reason he's the best to ever do it is because when I was in professional boxing promotion, I took 3 fighters pro, and the first 10 to 15 fights that all 3 of those fighters had were against nobodies, against people that they never ever should have been in the same ring as, that people that are hired to get knocked out, not because it's like fixed beforehand, but because they need the money so bad. And they're a career get in there and build someone else's record up. And it's a nasty, shady part of our sport, but it's a part of our sport. And Jake Paul is not only not engaging in that nasty, dirty, shady part of our sport, he is making millions fighting big names that maybe aren't boxers, but are certainly better than some drunk that they picked up outside of a bar that needs to pay their rent next month. And the reason he's the best to ever do it is if you take away where he came from, and if you take away like his stigma as this like problem child YouTuber, Viner, whatever, and you just look at his age, his weight, his record, him training, if you look at him objectively, he's really good for how early in his career is.
I completely agree.
And even you look at someone at the top that all the like big promotions are betting on, like Brian Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
Even as recently as his last 2 fights, he's fighting people he has no business being in there with because they're trying to build him back up. And it's bullshit. No one watched those fights because no one wants to watch those fights. Whereas, Jake he sets a great example of how to still do the same thing, but do it in a way that helps the sport, that sells tickets, that brings more people into viewership, and a way that gets him ready to actually take on real fighters, which I think we'll see very soon.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, and that's the thing. He's just in this weird space where it's like, he's clearly good enough to beat high level MMA fighters, but he's also too famous to just like have fight like a no-name guy and like risk it against a no-name guy and all. And so like it has to be like a bigger name in boxing. So like, but why would Triple G or somebody like that, or like Canelo, like why would they want to fight Jake Paul? So he's in like this really weird space of like, he just found a really good niche. And on top of it, I completely agree with you, Matt. Like people call me like, a Jake Pauler and like a Logang, Nut Rider and stuff like that, because I like them in professional wrestling. I think they work really well in the context of pro wrestling, and I think Jake deserves a lot of credit. So I think that I really appreciate you saying this stuff, because it makes me sound less crazy to our audience, because I'm constantly talking about how impressed I am by Jake Paul.
Yeah, and the best to ever do it. I'm not saying he's the best boxer of all time.
Sure.
Doing it is like the boxing game. He's playing the game of professional boxing better than anyone ever has, ever, period. Like that, there isn't even a close second.
I mean, you're not wrong in that. Like, yes, the first 10 fights, even like 20 fights of most boxers' careers, it's cans who, hey, let's build up. You're 20-0 against nobodies. Jake Paul is doing that, but he's not facing nobodies, and he's making millions on top of that. While most boxers who start off 10-0 make thousands if they're lucky. So look, I can't even disagree when you put it like that. I don't mind the Jake Paul stuff. Bless them for getting that money. And Logan, we talk about him a lot on this podcast. He's transitioned to wrestling very, very well. I will ask you this, like, any interest in professional wrestling from you, whether it be small scale, independent, or maybe even aiming a little bit higher?
Competing in it.
Managing, anything.
I look, I'm open to it. I did the celebrity boxing thing. I'd do that again. It's lower risk. There's definitely still a risk. Logan just blew his ACL, and there's plenty. I'm friends with Diamond Dallas Page, who put himself back together with yoga, which is I have a big yoga background. That's where I got the breasts from for chess boxing. So I get it. And I see the value in it, and I would be open to something like that. That being said, I think aside from like excellent offers that are hard to refuse, I think I'm on the commentary promotion side of this business from here on out. I competed in my sport, which I feel like I was born for. Playing chess as a kid, doing martial arts as a kid, finding a sport that combined the two, being the first person from my country to represent the U.S. in the World Championship, ending up winning my weight category. I don't need to go on another journey like that. Like I loved that journey, and I kind of got it out of my system. And in terms of pro boxing, I kind of, in my mid-20s, I had my shot at going into full-time promotion and management for pro boxing. And one of the many reasons that I decided not to is what I just explained about the shadier side of that business, and it being extremely difficult to change from the inside, which is why someone like Jake Paul is so important. Starting a fighters union, shedding light on everyone else who's doing it the old shady way, and when he's doing it a new, hard, better way. I just can't compliment him enough, even though I hate complimenting him because he's such an asshole, but he's so good. So, it's objectively and empirically and just calling a spade a spade. I'm in it for the longevity and the success of combat sports before anything else. And I think that influencer boxing, I think that professional wrestling, I think that chess boxing and hybrid sports that are kind of attention grabby and different and draw more people into it. I think all those things are on the right side of the fence that we need to be on in order to progress this sector.
I had a couple more questions before, and then I know Jeremy had a couple, had some reality TV. Well, one on the reality TV stuff here in just a second. Just a couple questions that I didn't want to forget to ask you. Do you have a preference? Like, would you rather knock someone out or checkmate them?
Yeah, that question can be answered a couple ways. The reason I love chess boxing so much is every matchup is so dynamic and different. You aren't playing the same game against any individual competitor, so it's always a different game plan depending on who you're up against. So the easy answer is it depends. If I'm trying to actually answer your question, I'd rather checkmate. It's less risky. There's less there's you're probably not going to get injured checkmating someone. um, and there's more longevity on that side of the equation. So spending your time getting better at chess, I think that there's more dividends to be paid long term. That being said, it feels great and is much better for the highlight reel and a viral social media moment if you knock someone out. So, if I'm answering from like that, fame or money kind of perspective, then I'd rather knock someone out.
There you go. Last question I've got is, has there been any, maybe this is already out there and I just don't know yet, but has there been any talks or anything you can tell us about like a sequel to the Ludwig Chess Boxing events? I'd imagine the first one was such a success that there'd be a follow-up to that. I know Creator Clash with iDubbbz, they're going to be doing another one this year, and that was another just huge YouTuber, massive success. So, I mean, it isn't this isolated thing. People like try to make it out to be. There's a lot of success going on all over the place with this stuff.
iDubbbz will keep going, and you're going to see two of the fighters from Ludwig's event in the next Creator Clash, and they haven't announced it yet, but there will be some continuity between those two events.
I love that.
And Andrea Botes is going to be continuing her boxing journey after chess boxing. So, and she's not one of the two that I just referenced in the next Creator Clash. So there's going to be momentum from this event in multiple ways. There is no official answer on if there will be a follow-up event to Mogul Chess Boxing Championship. Ludwig's thing is to do one big thing that's very different and grabs attention and move on to the next. And the only reason he's reconsidering putting one on again is because it took about $200,000 more than he expected in order to do the combat sport sanction, insurance, try to explain to everyone what chess boxing was and why they should come. And now there's enough name recognition for the sport where people know what they would be signing up for. They already have sponsors locked in. If they were to do another one, they could just re-up because all those sponsors got great ROI on the most viewed live event on on YouTube ever. 316,000 concurrent live, and then tens of millions of impressions. And then the last piece is they have the business model now. Like they were trying to build the plane after they had already jumped off the cliff for this event. Now they already have a business model and an event model where they could actually make money on the next one. They spent 1.5 on this one, and this is just what they've said publicly. I think they made about 1.3. So, a lot of that is as an investment into Ludwig's channel because he went up hundreds of thousands of subscribers because he decided not to pay-per-view and to broadcast it. And that's a worthwhile investment for him. The lifetime value of those new subscribers is way more than $200,000. So that's how he can justify it. But this is a long-winded answer to say they don't know yet. I sure hope so.
I love hearing the inner work. I'm fascinated by the whole Twitch, YouTube, just all that stuff is just fascinating to me. I've followed a lot of those streamers for a long time. So like seeing in more recent years, some of them like really getting these massive contracts to switch platforms and stuff like that. Ludwig being one of the massive names to do that himself. It's fascinating to hear you to kind of peel the curtain back a little bit on that. I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, I have a Love is Blind question because it's one of my favorite reality television shows. The wife and I watch it all the time. People who watch season 1 may not have even seen you because you weren't shown. There was a love triangle with you, Danielle, and Roy. You've talked about this in other interviews, so I'm not even going to ask about that because by all accounts of stuff I've read about it, you guys navigated it well and handled it well, and everything turned out well with you guys. What I want to know is when you sign up for a reality show like this, percentage-wise or just through your mind, are you expecting to really, truly find love? Because there's a lot of reality shows out there, Bachelor, everything out there, all these Too Hot to Handle is a big one that we love right now. Like, do you really expect to go on there and be like, I'm going to find the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with?
Yeah, I'll give a little context. So, like you said, I was a very small part of season 1. My only discernible speaking is in the first 30 seconds of the show. My face pops up and tells you the premise of the show. And so I when it came out at the beginning of COVID in 2020, I still had everyone from my past reach out because I'm the first face that pops up. But then, I go away because I don't get married on the show, and you did your homework. So, I did end up connecting with someone through the experiment. We ended up dating after the show, after the filming, and we remained friends, albeit at a distance. But it's, overall, it was a very positive experience for me. To answer your question, did I think it would be successful? I went on the show for a couple reasons before the reason that I thought it might be successful. The first reason is we were planning on raising money to launch a reality TV show for Brawl For A Cause. And if you don't know what Brawl For A Cause is, it is first-time fighters literally fighting for what they believe in. So they choose a charity that's close to their heart, that's affected them, their family, a community that they're a part of. We train them for 3 months under the condition that they haven't done this before. They haven't had a fight before. So they learn how to defend themselves, how to throw a punch, and how to represent their cause, how to personally brand themselves, how to fundraise, all that. And then everyone that contributes to their campaign gets to come out and watch them get punched in the face for what they believe in. And you don't sign up to get punched in the face unless you have a really good reason to. So the stories that come out of our event are absolutely amazing, which is why we thought it would make for good reality TV. So while we were putting together the pitch for Brawl TV, Netflix reaches out to cast me in reality TV. And I normally wouldn't be caught dead on a dating show. I don't want that kind of attention. I don't want that kind of following. Sorry, Love Is Blind fans. But just seeing what happened to my friends like Barnett and Damien and all them, it's like, they're getting weird, like death threats and feet pics and all kinds of weird shit that I don't have any interest in. But when they pitched the show, I was like, okay, there's utility in this, because from the inside, I can understand how the production of a high budget reality TV show works from a participant perspective, which is valuable, because if I'm going to ask my Brawl For A Cause fighters to do a reality TV show, I will have liked to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk and fight the fight and go through a reality TV show myself. And that's what I did before I started promoting the charity boxing events, is I fought myself. So I made sure it was a good thing. And this would be the same kind of thing. Like, I'll go ahead and go through this. But when they pitched the show, it was pitched very different than it was portrayed on Netflix. The way that it was pitched was, it was a PhD's basically thesis that all of her work was in audiology, or the effect of sound on the human brain. And so her experiment was, can love occur without seeing the person that you're falling in love with? And she did studies with like complete strangers and noting like the effect on brain waves between strangers' voices on each other, and then people that have been in love with each other for 80 years, and the effect when they would hear a stranger's voice or their wife's voice, and the effects on their brain that it would have. So I was like, holy shit, that's super cool. Like, this human experiment sounds like something I'd like to be a part of. And if it happens and it works, amazing. Like, I found my wife in this super interesting, unique, weird way. And if it doesn't work out, then I still get the utility of it for Brawl For A Cause. So it was a win-win for me. No one on the show expected it to do what it did. We thought it would be just another show that no one watched, and it ended up being number one in the US, top 10 globally, and absolutely blowing up the main characters on the show. So yeah, pretty crazy how that all happened.
Legitimately one of my favorite reality television shows. I'm just a huge fan of like reality TV like that. And I love as well. So I root for all of you guys when you're on there. I root for all of you guys to like be engaged, get married, live happily ever after. But then, you know, like I feel like 90%, and that might be a low number, just don't end up working out. And that saddens me. But season 1 actually did well. There's actually people who still are together from season 1. So you guys have really bucked the trend on that one.
Yeah. Well, you know, season 2, the 2 married couples have separated. Truthfully, I haven't watched season 3, but season 1, Cameron and Lauren are still together, and
love them.
You know, they're great. And Barnett and Amber still together, doing great. I interact with Barnett more than I interact with most of the cast. We had a co-stream. I just started, because of Ludwig, I started streaming video games and fitness on Twitch, and Barnett also streams. So we had a Call of Duty co-stream last week.
Season 1 is just absolutely fantastic. Barnett and Jessica and Amber, that whole thing, just great reality television. If you love kind of, I would call it kind of trashy reality TV. But I did, when I was reading about this stuff, and it sounded like, you know, this love triangle you had going on, you weren't going to play into that. And obviously that is where producers of reality TV are like, well, we're not going to really show a lot of this then, because you're not giving us the drama we are searching for. So I actually commend you if this is the case of like, yeah, we're just going to kind of be normal about this and not actually try to build things up here. I do commend that if that's the case.
Yeah. We weren't dramatic enough. You know, they thought the love triangle was going to end in, you know, they kind of profiled me as this like fighter, and the other guy that fell in love with Danielle, Rory, is a competitive gamer. So 2 really competitive profiles. They thought we were going to go at each other, and we were best friends, and we decided to do whatever was in the best interest of the person that we fell in love with. And that was I thought a really good ending and example for the world and the whole thing, but
they don't care about
they didn't
that.
think so.
They don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
I appreciate the insight of that. Again, huge fan of the show, so that rules. Last question, we'll get you out of here. Coolest thing in your room?
We ask everyone.
Oh shit.
Yes.
Okay.
If you get it. Yeah, if you can pick it up,
need to go get it, go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the World Championships medals in here.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's a world champion in chess boxing.
I mean, I got all kinds of stuff in this room. I'm on my way to being a hoarder. I like tokens, you know, like mementos from stories and events, and I always loved the idea. I hate that it's the antagonist from Harry Potter, but I love the idea of Voldemort's Horcruxes. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Where he like stored pieces of his soul in items. I feel like that's such a real thing that people do. Like you have like the good luck charm, you have the trophy, you have the whatever, and I definitely subscribe to that. Let's see, what should I pull here?
So much good stuff
so here's a chess boxing trophy.
Nice. Yeah, that's badass.
You can see the king in the middle, and then the 2 boxers on either side. This was from the first chess boxing world championship I went to in Calcutta in 2018.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
And Indians in general do their accolades. They're like their celebrations all the way. It's like second to none. They go all out for their ceremonies, for their celebrations, for their trophies. So all the stuff I've gotten from the Indian events are super cool.
That is awesome. That's
actually,
fantastic.
I'll get the other one too, so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we want to see that. Yeah, absolutely.
So many trophies and just medals and stuff. Oh,
ooh,
so
nice.
My it doesn't even fit in the screen the whole way.
Are you good?
So my teammate in 2018, Kevin Von Carber, and I, we trade this trophy back and forth every like 2 years. We make it a point to spend a weekend together, and hang out and tell old stories and hand this trophy back and forth. Because we're the only two people from the United States to go over in 2018, and we both won our weight categories, which means that even though there was only two of us, as a team, as Team USA, we still placed third overall in the medal count. So this is the third place trophy from the World Championships for United States, which is bigger than either of our individual trophies or medals.
About to say, if that's the third place, I'd like to see what the first place trophy
wild.
looks like.
Yeah, it's like the size of me. It's like, you know, it's like 6 feet tall. It's crazy.
Matt, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Really just fascinating, insightful stuff that I certainly didn't know about, and hopefully our audience learns a little bit about. Let everyone know where they can find you at on social media or streaming platforms or anywhere.
Yeah, you already got my Twitter up there, so it's just my name, Matt Thomas, with an underscore after it, and then everything else, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, is Moving with Matt, MOVING with WIHT, and then Matt, MATT. So yeah, I stream, if not every day, every other day. I'm doing mostly health and wellness content, chess boxing kind of workouts, yoga, the fitness concept called Fight and Flow that does basic martial art movements combined with yoga. So if you want free fitness, if you want some mindfulness, if you want to learn more about chess boxing, twitch.tv/Moving with Matt would be the place to go.
Nice. We'll make sure to put the links in the description below for everybody who watches this.
Cool. Yeah, the Fight and Flow, the Brawl For A Cause, which I'm glad you provided more insight for, because I was reading about that, and that is very interesting stuff, and a good cause as well. So it's really cool.
Do you have a date for a future for next event?
Yeah, we have multiple dates reserved in Atlanta in late April and to mid-May.
Wow.
And I think we can go ahead and say what the venue is going to be, because it's very unlikely we go with any other venue at this point. But the new Overtime League in Atlantic Station, the basketball coliseum with 1,200 seats, plus whatever we can fit on the court with VIP tables. It's going to be an awesome venue. So we're looking at Atlantic Station in late spring.
Okay. My brother's been trying to get, I've never competed. My brother's been trying to get me on one of these things. I've been thinking about it. I need to get in better shape, but,
this might be the year.
This might be the year. April. There's time for, if it's April, there's time. I could do a little like 3 to 4 month training camp to get ready. So yeah, appreciate you, Matt. My brother's been wanting to link me up with you for a while, so I'm really glad that we were able to do this, man.
Well, shout out to your brother, Boxing ATL. He's a great coach. If you were going to take on that challenge, I think you'd have a great guy in your corner. And yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on and sharing your platform with me.
Thank you again, Matt. We really appreciate it. Guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be right back here on the Spotlight.